Good evening, everyone. We continue our study in the book of Judges, and we are still at the beginning stage of the book of Judges, giving us the background and leading up to the first 350 years of history of the nation of Israel. In verse 2, uh, it starts this way, and then means after chapter 1. Now we have this term here, angel of Jehovah. And this is not really an angel in the angelic realm, but it actually means a messenger or an emissary, right? An emissary, a person that is sent by God. Now, in this case, this is a human. Understand that this word angel is malak. Malak. Malak means one who walks for another. And so it is understood from Jewish literature that this was Phinehas. Uh, and I guess Phinehas is the high priest at the time. So let me just put his name down. Phinehas. Now, this is from the Jewish literature. It's not from the text itself. And so understand that this is not an angel. This is a human emissary, somebody who represents God. And God is sending to talk to this people, but it's not a prophet in the true sense of the word, but one with a mission to remind the nation of Israel what has happened thus far. And so an emissary, and in this case, there is no the. If you can see in the uh, an emissary came, and this is what the emissary said. The emissary represents God to speak. He says, I led you up from Egypt and brought you to the land of which I swore to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. Now, let me just briefly describe this. First of all, understand this up and down. When it says up, it's from Egypt to Canaan. The land of Canaan is higher than the land of Egypt. So we always talk about up and down with regards to the terrain of the geography. This idea of brought you is caused you to come. That's what it means by brought. So the real word is God went through 40 years to take them out of Egypt and brought them to the promised land. And then they through Joshua, they conquered the land. And this is the covenant that God has made. First, it was the land which I swore to your fathers that I will not break my covenant with you, and this would be the fathers. Now, understand this word break comes from the word para. Just put it down. Para. Now, in the English, we always say, oh, you just break the covenant or you break the law. But the idea of para is to step on. Now, the idea of stepping on means to frustrate, or we should say to, uh, to treat of no value. That is what it means by break. And what God is basically saying is that to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that this land is given, and God will never say, "Oh, whatever I said to Abraham, I didn't really mean it." That would be breaking the covenant. That will be frustrating the covenant. That will be treating the covenant as of no value. So God is a faithful God. This is what it means here. God is a faithful God because he will never break his covenant with the people and with the fathers. And this is important for us to understand. Faithful really means God says what he means and means what he says. He is not going to be a God who says one thing at one time and forget what he said and he couldn't be bothered what he said before. That is faithfulness. And it's important that God is faithful. Otherwise, we will never know what he means to be serious and what he is not. Which is why you will never find that God never tells jokes in the Bible. Why? Because jokes is playing the fool, right? You are saying things that you don't mean. And so God never jokes with the people. He will say and he will mean. That's why he says, I will never break the covenant. I will never step on my covenant, my promise with you, fathers. And I have come and I've given you the land. Now that's important. The land that God promised, God said it, he honored it, and he made it happen. That's faithfulness. But in return, you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall tear down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Now, what's happened is God had said, this is a precondition. This is God's condition. Right? I will never break my covenant with you. And then you are also not to make a covenant. And in verse 2 means you are not to cut a covenant with those people who are dwellers, who are dwellers of this land, of the land of Canaan. Why does God do that? He says, I made a covenant I won't break. You are to make no covenants with the inhabitants because they will lead you to worship other gods. And so when you see their altars, you are supposed to, well, it says here, tear down. The intent here is to throw down and, in short, destroy. Destroy all the altars that you see that belongs to the people of Canaan. But you did not hear my voice. You did not obey my voice. You did not do what I say. So why have you done this? This is a question that God says, but you did not hear what I say. So this word here, have not obeyed, means did not hear what I said. So is it important to hear what God says? Yes. The idea of hearing means to listen, understand, and do. So this is what the idea of hear. When a parent tells a child, pick up your toys, the child is not expected to just hear the sounds of the parent, but actually to understand and do it. So we also have that meaning, and that's what God meant. You did not hear my voice. Why have you done this? Why have you done this? What is this? Well, it is described in verse 3, the opposite of what God told the Israelites to do. They did it. When I said, I told you not to make a covenant, you made a covenant with them. When I told you to tear down their altars, you left them there. That is what it means. Why have you done this? So in return, you find that God did a tit for tat. since you don't listen to me, then I have also said this: I will not drive them out before you. I will stop doing it. They shall be in your side. Now, this word is in your side, and there's a peculiar word here. There's no thorns here, right? Uh, the idea here is they shall be at your side, and this word is read in at your side to disturb you, to tempt you, to hurt you, to be a pain. That is what it means. They will be at your side. It's a pain at your side. And their gods, it says here, shall be a snare to you. What is a snare? Well, the idea of snare here would be a bait. It's a lure. And so it will be a temptation. That is what it means in this verse. I told you to drive them out, but when you are with me, you did not. And so I told you to break all the altars, and you did not. So what am I going to do? I am not going to disturb them anymore. I'm not going to drive them out. They will be disturbing you for a long, long time. And their gods, which I told you not to serve and worship, well, they will be there to tempt you, because the day you follow them, I will punish you. And so the Canaanites were originally supposed to be removed from the land, like how Moses did to King Sihon and King Og. But when they came into this land of Canaan, they did not complete their job. So it was when the emissary or the messenger, which is Pinchas spoke these words to all the children of Israel. They were shocked. The people lifted their voice. Now, the idea of lifted their voice is to raise their voice. Lift up is to raise their voice. And this idea of raise their voice is frustration. It's a form of a remorse, a form of a mourning. It's a very sad occasion. And then they wept, they cried. And that is why the name is called Bochim. The Bochim is the meaning of cried. That's the meaning. And so when it says from Gilgal to Bochim, which is a higher plane, it means to weep. And this is the background. They cry because God has retaliated. God has said, since you don't listen to me, I'm not going to listen to you. And all these people will remain as the pain in your side. That's why the translators use the word thorns. That's why they call the name of the place Bochim. And then every time they see that they have done wrong, they will sacrifice to God. But what happened? Well, God did not listen. When Joshua dismissed the people, the children of Israel went to his own inheritance to possess, to occupy, right? To occupy the land. So from here onwards, we see that all the people went back to the 12 parcels of land. And so it's every tribe for himself. Now, again, this word dismiss the people. The word dismiss is to send away. What this literally did was that there was a unified national army. This became tribal army. So each tribe will take care of their own matters. And so the unified national army was disbanded. Verse 7. And so the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua because they saw what Joshua did and how he knew God. And then all the days of the elders. Now, this is important for us to take note. The idea of elders here, Zakain, these are literally those who are old, and this is important for us to realize they are old and they have authority. These are the leaders of the clan. Now, in the old days, the leaders of the clan are not the young ones. The leaders of the clan are actually elders, true to the word. They are older people, very much older, in fact, and they are the ones who are the wiser ones, and they knew exactly what to do. They've gone through many situations, and they possess authority of the clans. They lived longer than Joshua. Now, how long they lived, we don't know. But they had seen all the great works of the Lord which he had done for Israel. What great works! These are the ones that when they came out of Egypt, they were very young. They saw the crossing of the Red Sea, the 40 years in the wilderness, and now crossed the Jordan into the Canaan. They fought all the battles, claimed all the cities, and they have distributed the land. They have seen what God has done. Now, Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died when he was 110 years old. He is 10 years younger than Moses. They buried him within the border of his inheritance at Timnath Heres. Uh, Timnath Heres is in the mountains of Ephraim on the north side of Mount Gaash. When all that generation, and you need to understand this word here, all that generation. Who are the generation? The elders. These are all the days of Joshua, the people of all the days of the elders. And when Joshua died, they buried him. When all that generation, now this is the word, being gathered to their fathers, this is a euphemism of die, right? They gathered to their fathers. The idea of gathering would be to gather their bones together and place it together in the same burial plot with their fathers. That's what it means by gathered to their fathers. What is important now in the book of Judges is this: another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord, nor the work which he had done for Israel. Now, what we need to understand is we have Moses, and then we had Joshua. And then Moses died, and we only had Joshua. And then Joshua died, and there was no Joshua. That's the place. This is the new generation. They were the ones who did not have the history of the past. No history. Which is a failure, I think, on the part of the elders. Never taught them what to do. Never taught them about God and his work. We begin to read in verse 11. The word then would be and then. After the first 12 verses, and then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. and served the Baals. Now, this word is shouldn't be translated as Baals. It should be Baalim. It is in the plural. And so the idea of evil here is Ra in the eyes of the Lord. Now, so again, I have often repeated myself. I think it's important for us to continually remind ourselves when you read the idea of good and evil, it is always to be understood from the eyes of the beholder. So the Lord God, who is Hashem or Jehovah, he looked at the children of Israel and what they did, and it was considered evil in God's eyes. God looked at it and says, that is not what I have told them to do. That is wrong. And they served the Baalim. Now, the word serve is to do service. Now, what does it mean? Do service means Baalim uh, really are the foreign gods of the land, and what the foreign gods through their priests tells them to do, these children of Israel also did it as well. Now, on the one hand, you see this word Baalim. On the other hand, we should realize that Baalim could be understood as the name of a god of the Canaanites. So it's like El and Elohim. So El, Elohim being a plural of El, Baal and Baalim being a plural of Baal, is seen as the same. Uh, God is Elohim. And so they did what was evil in the sight of Elohim, and they went to serve the Baalim. So you can see it's a play of the sound of the Hebrew, but basically they are chasing after the foreign gods. And they forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers. Now the word forsook, uh, it's atzav, and I think you can recall that this one is to forsake. We have seen it in Psalms, I think, the idea of forsake. Psalms, I think we can see it in Psalms chapter, let's see, 22. Psalms chapter 22, verse 1. It says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Now, that's the same word. And they abandoned the Lord God of their fathers. So we are now told, what did they do that was evil in the sight, in the eyes of God? They abandoned God. They abandoned God, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and they followed. Now, the idea of following in verse 12 is to walk after. They are to walk after Jehovah, but now they are walking after Baalim, other gods. And so this word God is also Elohim. And so this is one time I can show you that the word Elohim, or translated as God, in the plural, can be used to refer to the creator God, and now could be referred to the idol gods. They are the Baalim and they are the Elohim of the Canaanites. So understand that that's how the word is used. From the Elohim of the people who were all around them, the Canaanites, and they bowed down to them. Now, the word bow down to them comes from the word uh, shakak, and that is to uh, prostrate. And that is the word that the English Bible use, the English word worship. So worship really in the Bible, when it talks about uh, worshiping other gods or worshiping God Himself, it is to bow down, face to the ground, prostrate on the floor. And what it says here is that they went after the other gods. They did that instead of to Jehovah God. They did that to the Baalim, the other gods, and they made God very angry. They abandoned God, Jehovah, and served Baal and the Ashtoreth. And this is a female. This is a female idol. And there are a number of female idols in human form, in sheep form, in animal form. And they are all female regarding fertility. And then Baal is the male forms. And so God says, you shall not have any other gods before me in the Ten Commandments. I am a jealous God, and the anger of God was hot against Israel. Now, understand this. They were closer to the situation uh, at Mount Sinai when God says, you are my special people, a treasure among the land. You are my holy nation. You are a nation of priests, and you shall not have any other gods before me. But they did. And so God was angry. And so the punishment came very shortly. He delivered them into the hands of the plunderers who took them as spoils. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, so that they could not longer stand before their enemies. They cannot be proud. They cannot be bold. They were humiliated by God. That's what it means. And so this is the punishment. God doesn't strike them dead. God doesn't send them plagues. God doesn't give them illnesses. God always used the hands of other people to teach Israel a lesson. So as time went on, God used the Assyrians and the Babylonians, then the Medo-Persian to save them, then the Grecian, and then the Roman. All of them are teaching Israel a lesson. So whenever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for calamity. They would lose, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn to them. You disobey me, you didn't do what I tell you, I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm just going to leave the Canaanites in the land. And they were greatly distressed. Verse 16. But God did not abandon them. God was teaching them a lesson. So in verse 16, we have this word nevertheless, but actually it means and then. God Himself, the word raised up is established, cause to arise. Now, how do you cause anyone to arise? So these people will be the ones who stand up. They are bold, and they are called shoftim, judges. This is the name of this book, shoftim. They are not legal judges by that meaning. I think that is something which is important. They were not judges in the legal sense. They were the ones who are leaders, right? Leaders who inspire confidence. to show them how to live the Torah, to lead them out of the plunderers. This was the punishment, and to save them from the punishment, judges were raised. And these are leaders. Now, of course, they probably have heard cases here and there or disputes and administered justice, but their role really is to lead Israel uh, at a time where they needed leadership. It says, yet they would not listen to their judges, but they played the harlot with other gods, bowed down to them. They quickly turned away from which their fathers walked in obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do so. So if you recall this idea, whatever God says we will do. At Mount Sinai, they saw God and they told Moses, you go speak to God, and whatever God says, we will do. But in this generation, they quickly turned away from the path of their fathers. So the fathers had a certain conduct in life. This generation did not. They went to serve other gods. They went to play the harlot. They were doing prostitution with other gods. They will serve Jehovah God, they will serve Baal God, they will serve Asheroth God, and this God and that God, and bow down to them, and they bow down to Jehovah. And so this is why we'll do everything. And God says, no, you can't. And when the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge and delivered them out of the hands of their enemies all the days of the judge. Now, understand this, when there were times when judges were raised, they would not listen. You see this in verse 17? They would not listen to their judges. There were judges which they couldn't be bothered with. These judges did not inspire too much of leadership. Now, you could see this in the idea of, I guess, Samson. And maybe Samson would be one of those that they didn't quite listen to. Uh, but you have others like Othniel, Eli, Samuel. You've got a number of judges that they listen to, like Devorah, and so on and so forth. And then those they listen, it was good times. Those they didn't listen, it was bad times. And when God was with them, or with the judge, the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of all those who oppress them and harass them. And they are so fearful, and God took pity. Now, this is the word. Was moved to pity. Verse 18, the idea of moved to pity is nacham. Felt sorry. Felt sorry. And it came to pass when the judge was dead, then they have nobody else to listen to. They went back. Now, verse 19 says they went back. They reverted. They returned. Shuv. And behaved more corruptly than their fathers by following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not cease from their own doings nor from their stubborn way. Now, this is a very sad history. 350 years in the history of the judges. There were judges they listened to, and then there were judges they didn't listen to. And when they suffered, God came and rescued them, and they listened to God. And so they prospered, and then the judges died, and then they refused to listen again. So it's a cycle. Verse 20. And when they went on to do what they do and stubborn in their ways, the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he said, because this nation has transgressed my covenant. He says the idea of transgress means to pass over. Passed over. The covenant was, let's say, if this is the covenant, they would then take a stride and walk over. They did not break the covenant. They walked over it. So breaking the covenant would mean I treat it with no respect, no importance. Walking over has the idea of ignoring. They walked over my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and they have not listened to my voice. If that's the case, I will no longer drive out from before them any of the nations which Joshua left when he died, so that through them I may test Israel. This is a strange remark, and the idea of test is to prove Israel, to prove if they are loyal, they are faithful or not. God is faithful, but is Israel faithful? And so there were tests for them, whether they will keep the ways of the Lord to walk in them as their fathers kept them or not. God wants to know, are they going to do it or not? There is no assumption that they will definitely do. And so they need to have tests to see whether they will keep the ways of God and to walk in them. And the final straw is this. The verse 23 is, and then the Lord left those nations without driving them out immediately, nor did they deliver them. He delivered them into the hands of Joshua. And that is now our understanding that the enemies are tests to test whether they are loyal to God, to test whether they need to be punished and taught a lesson. And so it's all about testing, is to prove their faithfulness to God. If they turn and serve Baal and Ashtaroth, then God knows and God will judge them. And so with this, we are looking at the beginning of the book of Judges, and it paints a very detailed picture all the way to the end as to what Israel did as a nation of 12 tribes without a king. Here are only judges or leaders who stood up and took on that responsibility. And so with chapter 2, we open up the idea of going into chapter 3 of what God is doing with them in the times ahead. And with this, we come to the end of our session today.